Welcome back to Transforming Lives with Prophetess Rein. I'm your host, yours truly, Rein, and it's Wednesday, so you know what that means. This is another segment of Help Me Stand. Help Me Stand Wednesdays are always really exciting. Well, who am I kidding? Every segment that we do is exciting, but for those of you who are new to the channel, I want to explain just a little bit what Help Me Stand Wednesdays is all about. It is one of the segments of our show where we deal with issues that the believers face, and they just need a little help to do what? To stand. And so we look at issues that deal with process. We look at issues around our faith that conflict with our faith, I should say, and we try to give you some help and some biblical guidance and assistance for how you can cope so that you can live this life authentically and be pleasing to God and to be proud of yourself. So today's topic is one that is very interesting, and if you saw the title, then you already know what we're going to talk about, which is probably why you're here. And so let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about sex. S-E-X. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. Let's talk about it, because you know what? It's an issue that we kind of glaze over in church, and we really need more conversation than we're having about it. And I have a strong feeling that this show is going to spark some other shows, but that's okay, because ultimately we want to be helped to stand, and I think it's important. So let's talk about sex, baby. Okay, that was cheesy. So let's talk about it. All right, so the question often comes to me is, how can I maintain as abstinent? I have been told, but Rein, it is unrealistic. How am I supposed to stand? I mean, I have heard pretty much everything. And believe me, like you, I used to say it all the time. And my fix for it was, God, hurry up and let me get married so I don't have to deal with this issue. And, you know, that's really not a cure. I'm sorry to tell you, it's really, really not a cure. The reality is, everything that we deal with as a part of our faith life is intended to help us grow. It's intended to make us stronger. And unfortunately, we live in a world that is inundated with sex. Sex is everywhere. Heterosexual sex, homosexual sex, everywhere you turn. Sex is being used, you know, to promote certain agendas and to promote products that we use. I mean, we can't get around being exposed to it. So how do we maintain? How do we live? How do we deal with the sexual urges that come? How do I hang on? Because I really want to be pure. I really want to live a holy life, and I want to be pleasing in God's sight. Well, let's talk about it, and hopefully we'll have time to finish some of these points. If we don't, I promise to bring you another show on this topic. But the first thing I want to tell you is, don't beat yourself up about feelings. If you are rebuking feelings, I want to tell you to stop. Now, you might think I'm crazy. People might think I'm crazy. I'm okay with that, because I have been there. I have done this. You were talking to someone that was promiscuous at one point in my life. I was a serial dater. So trust me, I know where you are. But you have to understand that sexuality, if you will, is a gift from God. It is not taboo. It is not a dirty thing. It is not a bad thing. It is the enemy who likes to pervert it. It is the enemy who likes to make it pornographic and filthy. But sex in and of itself is a beautiful gift that God has given us to experience with our spouse. It's not a bad thing. So if you're single and you're thinking about it, don't beat yourself up and start rebuking, you know, the thought or the feeling, because it is natural. I just want to be very clear. Now, we do need to bring some things under subjection. Don't get me wrong. We do need to make sure that we're not going overboard in our thoughts. But what I'm really saying is, if you're having a moment where your body is reacting, can I tell you that it's supposed to? Otherwise, you wouldn't be normal. Your body would be moving against what God intended for it. Now, what we have to talk about is how to maintain when our body is speaking and our will is saying, nope, can't do that. All right, I got you. I got you. So the second thing we need to understand, once we understand that sex is a beautiful thing and that it's a gift from God, it is not taboo. It is not a taboo topic. It is not a taboo discussion. It's not a dirty thing. We need to understand that the biblical prohibitions, the things that the Bible warns us not to do, fornication, adultery, you know, that language that is used. It's really not meant, it's meant to protect something that is precious. It's not meant to punish you, or how can I say it? It's not something that is put in place to deceive you or rob you of a pleasure, because God intends for you to experience that. I can't even believe I'm having this conversation. God intends for you to experience sexual pleasure. You ever have one of those moments where, I'm totally a mom, right? I just got to put a pin in there. You have one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm a mother sitting here talking about this, but it's necessary. All right, just having a moment, forgive me. But it's God intends for you to experience sexual pleasure. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying. This is just funny to me right now. Okay, so it's not the prohibitions are put in place to protect something precious. And I think one of our greatest issues is that we don't see ourselves as precious, because if we did, promiscuity wouldn't be an issue. If we did, it wouldn't be as hard to keep our legs closed. And again, I think it goes back to, what are your life experiences? As an example, being molested from 5 to 14 or 13, I had a lot of issues around sex and what sex was and what love was. And I developed a perception that in order to keep a man, you had to do it. In order to, stay in a relationship, you had to give it up. Now, I didn't give it up to everybody, but when I was in relationships, I did so because I was trying to hold on. I didn't want to lose, okay? So and sometimes it was just giving into the feelings, giving into the emotions, wanting to experience something that I had not. But we don't often carry the right perception that you are a commodity, okay? If you go into a luxury item store, some of their best products are never seen on a shelf. They may be, if they're locked away in a gate where you can't touch it, or they may be in the back where they take the real high rollers and you get a chance to see what's not available to the public. And so what God is trying to do is help you help yourself not be so available, okay, to the public, not be so available, but to see yourself as a precious commodity that must be found, that must be, that must be found by who God intends. And I know sometimes that's a scary thought because it induces a wait. And we don't like to wait. We live in a world where we want immediate gratification. I still stand over the microwave. Now, never mind, it would take me longer to cook, but I'm standing over the microwave like, 59, 58, 57, because I want what I want and I want it now. And so we develop a fear, that it's going to take forever and I'm going to have to wait forever and I'm not going to be able to make it. That is a form of anxiety that the enemy likes to bring to you, to help you in the sexual stumble. And so you just have to really understand who you are. Now, you only understand that as you develop your relationship with God, as you develop your prayer life, okay? So you only understand that you are a precious commodity as you let God change your perception, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In other words, let God change the way that you think, the way that you see yourself, okay? And then I want you to consider the issues of lust and what we open up the doors to, okay? When we involve ourselves, the more you engage in something, the more you think about something, the more you ponder something, the more you want it. So a lot of times it's not that abstinence is hard, it's that we are consistently putting ourselves in a situation where it's always on your mind. And I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, because it's not. It's difficult when you're on social media and you're not married and your friends are everywhere popping up engaged and you're like, what am I, chopped liver? I get it. You know what I'm saying? If you're, going to the movies, or you're paying too much attention, not paying enough attention, to what you're watching on television, we can inundate ourselves. We can make it difficult for ourselves. This is why a prayer life is essential. The thing that got me through, that moved me from the place of promiscuity to abstinence, and I'm talking about abstinence for 7 years, okay? That was unheard of for me. I didn't even think it was realistic or doable. But the thing that moved me was allowing God to move my mind, was allowing God to pull my mind out of the gutter Let me just be honest, because there were times I was watching porn. There were times I was exposing myself to things that I didn't need to be. Okay, we're not going to talk about it, but but I'm here to talk about it because we need to be real, and I can't help you if I'm not honest. And I struggled with masturbation for a long time, but the thing that shifted me was throwing myself, delighting myself in God. And if you haven't seen the Authentic Worship episode on delighting in God, I want you to watch that. But it's the thing that moved me from the desperation and the gotta have it, hurry up and let me get married. All of that anxiety that came with it was building my relationship, allowing God to divert my attention, to put the focus on transforming me, to put the focus on becoming what I was supposed to. And in that process, God began to talk to me about who he wanted me to become. God began to talk to me about the husband that he would put in my life and what we would do together. And I began to desire that so greatly that the issue of sex, to be perfectly honest with you, it really became null and void. I didn't think about it a whole lot, and I didn't allow myself to be inundated if I couldn't handle certain movies. I mean, ain't no need in going to buy a ticket to see 50 Shades of Grey, or watch it on television, or indulge in Game of Thrones if you know that you can't handle it. Even some of the music you listen to, if you know you can't handle it, don't put yourself in that position. And I know it seems square, and I think, I deal with a lot of young people, and I think they think that I'm an old fogey, but I've been where they've been. And so when I use the language cultivate relationship, there's a myth that I want to dispel, okay? I know that sometimes we perceive that developing a relationship with God just can't be the answer to everything. And I want to tell you that it absolutely is the answer to everything. Because when you cultivate that relationship and you go to God and you start talking to God about these feelings, about these issues, about the weight, God talks to us like I'm talking to you right now. God breaks things down. All you have to do is show up. And when God is breaking these things down, often we're gaining strategies. We're gaining insight. We're gaining wisdom. And so we understand why our weight, because a lot of sexual anxiety when you're not married stems from how long am I going to be single? And so when you're sitting with God and you're walking through that, God answers a lot of questions that really do make you feel better. You just have to be honest enough with God to have the conversation. I'm telling you, the way I'm talking to you is the way I talk to God. God, if you don't help me, I'm not going to make it. God, I looked at that person. I thought they were real attractive and they want to date me, and I really want to date this person. What do you have to say about it, God? Because it was necessary for me to cast that on God and let God minister to me. Abstinence doesn't have to be a thorn in your flesh. Abstinence doesn't have to be difficult to live. It's like when somebody tells you that something better is in store, therefore the thing you want, you cannot have. It makes not being able to have that thing so much better. And the other thing I want to talk about, and again, we're going to continue in this conversation because it is a hot button topic, and I know that there are many questions that are raising up for you. We may even do a webinar on this. The other thing you have to understand is you don't have to do this yourself. And we're going to talk about this in another segment of Help Me Stand. God is not unaware of what you like. You have to remember it is God who created you. It is God who gave you these feelings. And unless the enemy has perverted something, everything you feel, everything you desire, what you like is pretty natural. Doesn't mean you're always going to get that. I don't want to put that lie in your head. But you've got to understand that God knows you and God knows what you need. Okay? So God is never going to get it wrong. And I think largely we're afraid of what if it's not what I like? What if it's not what I want? We talk about delighting ourselves in God. When you throw yourself, when you fall into your relationship with God, there is an exchange of desire. There's a dialogue that happens where God is revealing to you what God wants for you. And the closer you draw, the more you want what God wants. You understand what I'm saying? So you don't have to feel like, what if God doesn't get it right? Because that's a fear. And we'll probably build that out and talk about that a lot more. But God knows all. you know, and the best place you can fall into is the source. So I want you to stop beating yourself up for sexual feelings. You know, if you fall, I'm going to tell you to get back up, start again. When I was abstinent for 7 years, I'm not going to lie to you, I fell. I fell once, and I had to get up, and I had to start again, and I had to say, Lord, I'm moving forward from here, because my desire is to keep myself for my husband, and I know that I can do it. I know that there is no temptation that you haven't made a way of escape for. I know that it is possible. I just have to do the things that are necessary to keep me sane. So that's all the time that we have for today. Again, we're going to revisit this, and I'm going to go ahead and revisit this for our next Help Me Stand Wednesday. So stay tuned for Let's Talk About Sex 2. While you're here, once you visit my website, ReinWallaceInternationalMinistries.com. There's a lot of helpful information that I believe is going to be a blessing to your life. Some programs that God has given us to initiate that are really, really going to dig deep into these issues and take you through more than 15 minutes. I have a coaching program. I would love to be a coach for you if you feel led to engage me in that way. I am just grateful that you are spending this time with me. And until next week, have a blessed one.